Good morning. Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
How's it going?
I think it's going okay.
Nice.
I always find Zoom confusing because it shows my preview flipped from the other programs I use.
Flipped like it's mirror imaged in some way?
Or not mirror image, as the case probably is. I don't know. Right?
Let's see.
See, you
No. It's
you still look the same to me as you do like on GBC, but like I don't look the same to myself in the preview.
so this is my right hand. Yeah.
See, now my right hand is showing up on the left side of my screen.
Yeah, a mirror
it-
would look the opposite. Sorry, go ahead.
It's being mirrored.
Yeah. No, it's just weird because this is the only one I use that's like this. All the rest are flipped 180 or however you want to say. Mirror imaged, yeah.
Which I guess kind of makes sense, right? Like if you are used to seeing yourself in a mirror. Skew a
Yeah,
little more.
because like I'm looking at it and I'm seeing like the window behind me is not on the same side as that actually would. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, I don't know. It just depends.
Well,
Like,
see, that was your mistake, having a window.
well,
You got to do your work in a windowless room, like a serious person.
I don't know if I have any rooms that are. I mean, I guess I could move to the laundry room or something.
Just get some bricks. Like, doesn't matter if the rest of your house is bricks. Just use bricks. It's fine. Trust me. Don't trust me. But trust me.
Not as many bricks up here in the Pacific Northwest. Like, I don't know of a lot of brick buildings that are newer than about 1960. So
Interesting. San Francisco,
earthquake risk.
right. Well, I mean, San Francisco has brick
Same
buildings.
Thing. Yeah, but those are probably old too, right? I mean, well, some of the new ones they put the brick facing, but they're not really brick. You know what I mean? It's like a wood building with like bricks glued to the front. So,
gotcha. Yeah, because like the Hills Brothers coffee building or whatever that's turned into like a business plaza. That one I think was built in the 80s and definitely had bricks showing. I don't know if it's just a facade or not, though.
yeah, I don't know. I will say this. Remember, Seattle got its big start after we shipped all those trees to rebuild San Francisco after the big earthquake 110 years ago. So that's where we get the money from up here back in the day.
Ironically, the biggest like property damager from that was the fire that occurred post.
Yep. No, but it burned all the wood buildings down, and you guys like, we need some trees. Who's got those?
we may have one or two.
One or two.
Are those your trees out the window, or are you going to be shipping those to San Francisco?
No, actually, those trees are across the street from me. So yeah, not my trees. My lot actually ends pretty quickly behind my house, so it's not. you don't. Yeah.
It's not tree friendly.
I guess not. I don't know.
Yeah, you could do it like a small lemon tree, maybe.
Well, I've got some small trees, yeah, but no, like 200-foot tall pines or something. So. But even better this way is I get to look at them, but I don't have to worry about them if they were to fall over as much from an insurance standpoint. So there you go.
Right. You can see the
Because
claimant.
that does happen.
Yeah.
And it's been raining pretty good recently, which softens up the soil. So if there's a windstorm in the next couple of days, some will go over someplace. Yeah.
Yeah.
Takes your picks what problems you have.
Yeah. Yeah, trees falling on houses is scary. Like, I've known people it's happened to. Like, I don't think it's ever, like, destroyed the house. It's just sort of like...
It will ruin a room or a wall, though. Pretty easy. So.
Yeah. And this weren't a 200-foot thing. Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's because I've only had a tree fall over once, and it wasn't that big, and it was because somebody drove their car into it, so it's all relative.
There is... on YouTube for a while, I was watching these things. There's this British steeplejack named Dibna or something like that, and he had one of the things he would do is like tear down old like 1800s factory smokestacks.
Okay.
And it's like kind of interesting how he'd remove bricks from one side and
So
like
they'll
fill
fall
it
that
up with
direction.
like wood. Yeah, and then you'd like light a fire so the wood would like go away, and then timber. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess they must. Yeah, they don't really have earthquakes over there like we do out here on the West Coast. So I guess it's not. I was gonna say if anybody built like a brick chimney up here in the mid 1800s, it probably would have fallen over by now for different reasons. So anyway, I was trying to think if I could think of any, but
were we in like factory territory? Like 1860, San
no, it's a little too
Francisco
little too early for the Seattle area.
Yeah.
1890s more so up here.
Like San Francisco is kind of boomtowny.
Well,
Only
more boom towny than Seattle or Tacoma probably, because like when did the railroad get up here?
we've replaced the gatekeeper meeting with a history lesson, everyone.
Yeah.
No, it's we're
1873 is when the railroad got up here to Tacoma. Actually, not even Seattle at that time. So anyway.
Yeah, I think
history lesson where the professor has to look it up at the same time as their lecture. Real professors do that the night in advance, you know. So
they Wikipedia it.
Or at least read the textbook, I guess.
The one they wrote. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I don't know. I mean, at least when I was at school, yeah, the one they wrote and then made you go pay for it, the copy center to get the print out of. So if it was actually one that got published for real, it was probably edited better, which was nice. So,
Nice.
But then it cost 10 times as much money. So,
sorry. Is Rita and Sirtash? Are we? Do we know if they're showing up? Didn't check.
I'm not sure if they will join. Actually, they all are travel here in Redmond.
Oh, they're traveling, you said?
Yeah, they are here in Redmond. We have this team up days.
Yeah, Rita just said she isn't going to join, so I apologize, y'all. We were killing time. Hopefully, it was entertaining, but
if I'd known, I could have driven 10% of the way to Redmond in that window. So there you go. Maybe not. Maybe 8.
I hear there's a rail there, though.
A rail?
No, not really. You said when the railroad, you were looking.
Yeah, train. They had Redmond would have been pretty tiny in those days. I think mostly it was all lumber camps out there on the east side.
They didn't have ye old Microsoft.
Well, Microsoft's really founded, I think, in New Mexico, if memory serves, right? Then they moved up to
Yep.
Washington in the 80s, right? I think so.
Yep.
Something like that.
Yeah, they moved from New Mexico to here in the but
See, they teach that to you if you go to public schools up here. It's been so long, didn't want to be sure if I was remembering it right or not.
Well,
back in the 90s, going to public schools up here, there's like Microsoft and Boeing. Like, there's the only two companies that they talked about. So.
Now all I can think of is the Microsoft logo in like 1700 script where the S's are F's.
Well, I think if memory serves, it was founded in the 70s, but still. Okay, let's see here.
I'm just asking, for all of you here who work for them, maybe float it. See if they want to go retro for,
Yeah, the weird S's. I know exactly what you're talking about, though. Yeah.
All right, sorry. Shall we meeting?
Let's go for it. I've actually got to drop off here in about 20 minutes max. But I've also been the only person who put anything into the meeting notes, and my items are like 30-second topics. So
cool.
So I will share the screen at least. So since we don't have Rita or Surtesh, probably not quite as much because I was mostly hoping I could conscript one of those into them. We've had a couple PRs on the Gatekeeper library. They've been waiting for a second approval for a while from other folks, so I just like to ask to get some traction on them. I think at least one of them I keep on having to tell the stale bot to no longer stale it. So just keep our contributors happy. And then
sorry,
yeah.
One thing about that, there was an informal understanding that if things have been sitting for like, I forget if it was a week or 2 weeks, but clearly it's been longer than that here. We can ignore, as long as it's the other maintainers are probably aware of it. So if some of these are pretty non-controversial, right?
Yeah, I don't know that they're controversial, but they're also, some of them are not small. I think this one only changes 343 files, so it probably would be good to get a different opinion. But what I was going to say, Max, totally agree. I guess my thought is there was nothing in any of these also that I think was sort of like a pressing issue, if that kind of makes sense. So yeah, but I certainly agree and appreciate the comment or reminder. And I saw a comment from somebody. I apologize. The chat went by. Yeah, I was gonna, and the other thing I was gonna mention, and this one's probably more in your direction, is I opened a bug for it, but I think the Gatekeeper library's website generator only retains the final mutation sample per directory. So somebody tried to contribute some more samples, and I think it's losing the top ones. I was gonna look into this if I ever had time, but if anybody is more familiar with that code, that would be also terrific. So I thought I'd just highlight that. That's what's blocking another sort of pull request from somebody else, because they had one to add more mutation samples, but they're not actually. It looks like if they have like 3 in a directory, we're only keeping the last one it sees, if that makes sense. So probably just needs to be aggregated or something like that in a template.
Gotcha.
This is interesting.
Go ahead.
I thought we check all the. I mean, we have the proper recursive logic. That's what my understanding was.
Maybe, in which case maybe there's a different bug, but
right.
I think when I was looking, it did look like. Yeah, I don't remember. I be honest with you, I'm happy to dig into this, but it looks like I wrote this 2.5 months ago, so I don't really remember it. A month and a half ago, so I don't really remember it off the top of my head. But yeah, there is something. There was a problem, at least I observed with this one. So yeah, if you want to look at it, that's fine. Otherwise, I will at some point. That was just more of a note as to why this PR was kind of stuck, because it otherwise looks good to me.
Okay, I'll take a look at this one.
Okay, cool. That's all I was going to bring up. I was just trying to sort of get a bunch of the Gatekeeper library PRs cleaned up here before the end of the year. So I've got 1 or 2 other ones that I've just assigned myself this morning, and I'll run through. So that's it for me, unless anybody had questions.
No. Oh, thank you. Oh, do I have?
Oh, and I stopped sharing out the agenda, but that was There's nothing else on it right now, just FYI.
Oh, gotcha. It's starting out like present. Got it. Okay. I was like, what? What? You were sharing a thing?
Presenting it to the screen, sorry.
No, I get you. It's early for me. Sorry. Okay.
I've only been up for 3 hours, so it's okay.
Oh, you're breaking my heart. I hope you're a morning person.
Now,
Well, see, here it barely matters because the sun's only been up for 45 minutes, so.
now I know why Andrew didn't vote for that poll.
Did do what?
You didn't vote for the poll where we are suggesting to move time from 9 to 10 p.m.
Oh, also, I was out of town that week, so that probably missed it for that reason.
And you went to sleep or woke up not long after I went to sleep.
Well, I did go to sleep earlier, I guess. So there you go. I'm normally asleep by 10 p.m. at the latest. So there you go.
Gotcha. Yeah, I stay up fairly late. All right. Cool. Thank you.
Hey, hello.
Good.
Hello. Yeah, so I am Chao from the K8s team. So Satek suggests me to basically I have some question and Satek suggests me to ask in this call, but he is not here today. So so to summarize my question is so in K8s team, so we are trying to use Gator as a part of our CI/CD process to use that to use the same policy to validate the Kubernetes deployment configuration. So in general, we have a different kind of configuration, like the customized, like the Helm chart, and we are trying to integrate the whole process into the pull request testing, something like that. But we have encountered some issue, the first one is the Gator does not support the non-Kubernetes object. Like for example, so if we pass in a customized configuration into that, and it will not validate the configuration because some customized configuration is not declaring with the GVK settings. So this is the first issue, and the second issue is so basically the goal of our usage is to try to run the Gator test before we deploy the thing into a real cluster. Yeah, so here so now the problem is we need to build every configuration like the customized chart or maybe the Helm chart before we can run the test. And if we run the test on the compiled configuration, we'll only see the error for the compiled configuration. But there will be chance that, for example, we want to validate the common configuration, like we declare in the customer for the common labels or common annotation. And if we yelling on the combined configuration error, then it might be tricky for the developer or the user to figure out what is going on here. So they can see the error from the combined configuration, but they actually what we want is we want to ask them you declare the configuration in the a shared configuration like the customize.yaml or the variable.json. So I'm trying to what I'm trying to ask here is do we have plan for Gator to support non-Kubernetes configuration? Like for example, maybe we can let it to support validate any JSON file or YAML file.
So just I think I mostly followed the thread, but just to make sure I'm on the same page with you, this non-Kubernetes configuration, you're talking about Helm chart parameters or what?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I also paste a link. So basically, I try to present our current usage in a demo repo. So I try to capture some errors or some use cases. So yeah, so basically we want to use Gator to validate the non-Kubernetes configuration.
Got you. That is an interesting one because kind of yes, kind of maybe no. So underneath Gator, right, is the constraint framework, and that should be fairly agnostic as to what it returns. right? And so in that sense, yes, I did.
Yeah, but I also checked the code. So basically, the blocker is when we try to add the object, add the unstructured object to the the framework, it will block because it requires the object is presenting with some GVK metadata.
Yeah, and Max, my memory when I've looked into this for my own purposes as well, is that's because Gator uses an unstructured out of the K8s API machinery, which of course is designed for a K8s style object. So yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, and to be clear, I wasn't yet talking about Gator, just constraint framework. And constraint framework just
Yeah, should work with that. Yeah, I know that. Yeah.
It'll take an interface.
Yeah.
So, and if I remember right, basically the target handler for Gatekeeper, right, will like try to cast the inbound object as an unstructured, and if it fails, it goes, I don't know what this is, and then it's not validated by Gatekeeper's target handler, which is probably a good thing because, as you pointed out, it's missing like metadata and stuff, right? So for the constraint framework side of things, basically you would need to create a target that understood whatever non-K8s objects you were looking at. And we do have examples of those. There was this thing called Forseti config validator for a while. Terraform validator uses the constraint framework. I forget if that code is open source.
So do you mean do you mean to reuse the constraint framework but not running with the Gator?
Well, I'm going through the whole stack of problems. Sorry, I was going to be monologuing for a little bit. So that's the first bit. That's the how it would be made possible. Is we would need to augment the constraint framework, or the use of the constraint framework, I should say. Constraint framework is already able to do this. If it's initialized to support those objects. Now the question is, should we do that with Gator? And I did run an experiment with this at one point, and I think it's one of those things of could versus should. Like, I definitely am open to the idea of a CLI that is agnostic.
Yeah.
To is it a Kubernetes object? Is it not? Whether Gator has already been built with a Kubernetes assumption like mixed into it too tightly to like decouple that or not, I'm not sure there. Like the issue, one issue might be the classification of resources, right? When I did this, I kind of did it in a hacky way, right? As like, oh, if it's YAML, assume it's Kubernetes, or if it has these fields, assume it's Kubernetes, or something like that, and then just very obviously like, and otherwise assume it's this other thing. So the challenge would be, and sorry, I forget what the edge cases there were, but the challenge would be basically making that smooth, right? And figuring out also those use cases where if someone like points Gator at, let's call it a dirty directory, right? Maybe it contains Go files, readmes, and blah, 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 but really they only want to have it evaluate K8s YAML. How can they give clues to Gator or this other like extra thing to say, no, only use Gator, right? So long story short, constraint framework can do it. Gator uses the constraint framework, so maybe could be made to do it, but we would need to think through the UX. And if the UX is too intractable, I would not be against something that is more agnostic than Gator, and maybe we could throw that in the constraint framework somehow.
Mm-hmm.
The skeleton for building a CLI like this or something that's easy to extend. I could see that being kind of cool.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah. So I think maybe one way I will try is I will try to like to polish the data usage, like with some example. Then you can see, oh, we can like try to add the support with that. So basically, the idea is we want to like try to shape left to make that, oh, we can detect the issue as soon as possible before we deploy to the cluster. So that's the goal from our side. So yeah, I will take a look to see, oh, if I can come up some like idea, and then we can like play around with it and see if we can implement that. So yeah, I'm so the first thing I just want to like confirm with you to see if we want to go with this direction. If there any like obviously blocker for that, but since I know, then maybe we can have try with this area.
Yeah, the risk with like Gators specifically would be the UX, right? Just like, can we make it make sense? The other like kind of like user level consideration I would think about would be reusability of the policy code, right? Like if you're looking at like Helm chart. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so this is the second issues I want to report. So the issue is so in our teams we try to like reuse the gatekeeper library, the like the PSS has some like shared policy. Right. But for those policies they are like written with some pod oriented, like, oh, they expecting the review object is pod. But in real world, like for the deployment spec, most of the deployment spec, they are like using some deployments object or maybe like a cron job up. Yes.
So that, sorry to interrupt, but that we have the resource expansion object. Let me see if I can find the doc. Excuse me.
Okay. Yeah. So that's for expand the pod to expand the deployment to pod. Like for example.
Yes, and all the other like super pod objects like cron job and but you mentioned a couple of others. Very good.
Okay, yeah, I will have a try with that, but I'm still have a concern is like after the expansion, so we report the error from this pod object, but how can we like correlate with the pod error to the deployment object error? I'm not sure. So I haven't tried that yet, but
yeah, if I remember right, there are some clues in the error message.
Okay.
Like it definitely shows that it's been an expanded error. And I forget if it shows, it probably doesn't show the source object name, but the expanded object name is related to the source object name. So it's not going to be like a random string. So provided your deployment name is identifiable, it should be grokkable. I would need to like
try that.
Remember the specific. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think this is a good point. Yeah, but on the other hand, so what do you think of like the idea of like making the like gatekeeper library to like to recognize the controller object? Like, oh, maybe we can extract the container. So basically, I checked those policy. They are doing something like, oh, we get the containers from the pod object, but actually we can also do the similar thing to try to detect if the review object is a deployment. Then we extract the containers from the review object, like doing some like spec template spec containers, something like this.
So you're saying like in the contents of the constraint template, if it have separate logic for deployments versus pods and the constraint template itself.
Yeah.
There was a blog post, an issue a while back where I highlighted the edge cases for that. Long story short, there are definitely like shortcomings around matching, for instance, right? Like if you did a label selector, the labels on the deployment are not necessarily identical to the labels on the generated pod. So you could wind up with inaccurate enforcement that way. There may have been some other edge cases, and also there's a certain amount of coupling that causes, like, I don't know how often Kubernetes is adding workload primitives nowadays. But you can imagine if you have like 50 constraint templates, each of them doing this, like, hey, if it's a deployment, I look here. If it's a pod, I look here. If it's a stateful set, I look here, blah, blah, blah. And then you add a workload resource. Let's say you have a custom one that you built yourself. You would need to update that logic 50 times, right? Whereas if you have some centralized bit that knows to like expand out and create a mock pod, you don't have that concern. So
okay.
it
Yeah.
would be a little less reusable. Yeah.
Okay, got it. Yeah. So yeah. Okay. I will try the expansion part to see how does the error looks like. So yeah. So basically, yeah, I agree with you. We need to like make sure the UX and the DX side is good enough for the developer to use. Yeah. Okay.
Right.
I will go with this.
Also, sorry. The thing would be like when you talk about non-Kubernetes resources, it sounds like you're still talking about things that generate Kubernetes resources, right? So you have
yeah. So basically, it's a mix of something is like a Helm chart, something is for the customized, or maybe something that's internal configuration. But at the end, we will combine all this thing into a big Kubernetes object and deploy to the target cluster. But
right.
However, so yeah.
So if we think about reusability there, right? And let's just take the PSP stuffs, right? Let's pretend you have a Helm chart that generates pods, or maybe some, you mentioned like internal config that generates pods. If you write a constraint template that specifically looks at that config, right?
That could work.
Looks at the Helm chart parameters, Helm chart in particular, because there's so many different Helm charts and they all have kind of different parameter schemas. That constraint template will be specific to that Helm chart, right? So for something like a PSP, you wind up with a lot of templates, and they're pretty highly coupled to how those charts function. So actually taking the by Andrew, actually taking the chart and expanding out the resources that it generates avoids you needing to rewrite a policy specifically for that chart.
Yeah, so you are suggesting, so basically we should like try to use the expansion first to like convert like regarding the what is the input source, like a customized or Helm chart, we expand to the pods, the actual pod, and then we run against on the actual pod object.
Yeah, I don't know if so expansion is getting kind of vague here. Like I don't know if I do the resource expansion like gatekeepers thing. Like I don't know if it would be complex enough for that use case. But you know, Helm has a hydration as part of its command, customize. Traceability, then, as you pointed out, could become a concern. But that's where maybe if there is a way to have like metadata around the object being validated, right? And I don't know if this is a modification to Gator Commander or something else. But if for you could imagine, this is off the top of my head. If you were to take a CLI and modify it to say run Helm or run customize or whatever to generate resources, right? And it wraps those resources in this like metadata object, right? That includes the contextual data of like the source config and whatever else is necessary for traceability. And then, you know, in that CLI, when it comes time to call the constraint framework, it unwraps this metadata
and
object.
report back.
Was it?
Yeah, and report that metadata back as part of error message. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah. And the important bit would be to not like shove the metadata into like labels or annotations, to have like a second channel for the data, because otherwise you could basically poison the policy evaluation, right? Like affect how label selectors operate or whatnot.
Yeah, that sounds good. That sounds like I will have a try with that too to see if we can come up with some ideas. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I will try with that. So, do you want me like to create some issue to check this, or just start a Slack thread for this one, or maybe we can keep discussing, or maybe in next call for that.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I don't monitor the Slack chat unless people like chat me directly.
Okay,
because,
got it.
you know, I don't have much bandwidth for monitoring a chat. But yeah, if you, so it sounds like you want to like experiment and have a design. Is that right?
Yes.
So like, feel free to like direct message me if you have something I could look at, whether it's a doc or a demo or a design.
Okay.
You know, whatever kind of artifact. Another way of doing it would be to add it to the gatekeeper meeting notes, say at least the Monday before the meeting, so that people have time to look through. And you know, still adding me or Rita or whoever else you're interested in, definitely like having looked at it and probably mentioning it on the channel is good, because then we will have like pre-read it and have state. Otherwise, maybe we'll just like go, okay, now we know it's here. Next meeting, we'll talk about it once we've had a chance to read it, right?
Sure. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the suggestion.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, that's all I have. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Any other questions, thoughts, concerns, meeting topics? All right, are we cool with ending, looks like 22 minutes early? All right, thank you all for coming.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Yeah, have a good rest of your Wednesday.
Bye.